A text message arrived at 7:13 a.m. on a Thursday morning while I was reviewing investment portfolios in my downtown office. Family reunion Sunday at the beach house. Try to blend in this time. Marcus. I screenshot the message and added it to my ever-growing documentation folder. Uncle Marcus had been sending variations of this message for 14 years, ever since I'd started attending family gatherings as an adult. Each one a reminder that I was adopted, that I didn't quite belong, that my presence was tolerated rather than welcomed. What Uncle Marcus didn't know was that his beach house, his real estate empire, his lifestyle, and his ability to host family reunions were all funded by his silent partner, the same charity case he loved to publicly humiliate. The relationship had started innocently enough. Fresh out of business school 17 years ago, I'd been working at a financial consulting firm when Marcus's real estate development company landed on my desk as a client facing bankruptcy. His books were a disaster, his cash flow negative, his expansion plans delusional. Any rational analyst would have recommended liquidation. Except that I saw potential. Marcus had vision and connections, but no financial discipline. His projects were solid, but his management was catastrophic. I'd structured an anonymous investment through shell companies, providing the capital injection that saved his business while maintaining complete secrecy about my identity. Over the years, that initial investment had grown into something much larger. Marcus's real estate empire now spans 8 states, employed over 4,500 people, and generated annual revenues exceeding $600 million. My stake had grown to $280 million, making me not just his largest investor, but his controlling partner in everything except name. Marcus believed his success was entirely self-made. His favorite story, told at every family gathering, involved pulling himself up from near bankruptcy through grit, determination, and refusing to accept handouts. The irony was lost on him, but never on me. Sunday morning brought the familiar ritual of preparing for family judgment. I dressed carefully, nice enough to show respect, modest enough to avoid accusations of showing off. My Toyota Camry would blend in with the other middle-class vehicles, while Marcus's collection of luxury cars dominated the circular driveway. The beach house was spectacular as always, sprawling across 5 acres of prime oceanfront. It featured custom architecture that Marcus loved to describe in detail to anyone who would listen. The construction had been funded through a capital distribution from our partnership that Marcus believed was a business loan he'd paid back early through smart investing. Well, look who decided to grace us with her presence, came Marcus's booming voice as I approached the terrace. He was holding court with my cousins Jason and Tyler, both of whom worked for his real estate company in management positions they'd inherited rather than earned. Hello, Uncle Marcus. Thank you for having me. Always room for family at the Harrison Beach House, he declared, gesturing expansively. Even the adopted ones. The assembled cousins chuckled appropriately. This was Marcus's standard opening move, establishing the hierarchy immediately, reminding everyone of their place in his version of the family structure. How's the bookkeeping job treating you, Elena? Jason asked with practiced concern. Still doing taxes for small businesses? It pays the bills, I replied. This was technically accurate. My financial consulting firm was indeed small, consisting of just me and 3 employees, and it did handle books for various small businesses. What they didn't know was that those small businesses included several of my own investment vehicles and consulting operations. Must be nice to have simple work, Tyler added. No real pressure. No big decisions to make. Marcus nodded approvingly. That's the difference between real entrepreneurs and people who play it safe. Some of us build empires, others balance checkbooks. The morning continued with familiar patterns. Marcus dominated conversations with stories of his latest projects, his expanded workforce, his industry recognition. My cousins peppered their updates with references to their roles in the family business and their pride in working for someone as successful as their father. The best part, Marcus announced during brunch, is knowing that everything we've built will stay in the family. Real family. The people who understand what it means to carry on the Harrison legacy. What about Elena? Asked my cousin Olivia, Marcus's daughter, who'd recently graduated college with a fashion degree funded by partnership distributions Marcus thought were profits from smart investments. Marcus's expression became serious, the way it always did when the topic of inheritance arose. Elena's not really family in that sense. She was a charity case we took in when her parents died. We gave her opportunities, sure, but the business belongs to blood relatives. That makes sense, Jason agreed. Family businesses should stay with actual family members. It's nothing personal against Elena, Tyler added. But she wouldn't understand the real estate industry anyway. It's not really her world. I continued eating fruit salad while listening to detailed explanations of why I wasn't qualified to inherit assets I'd been secretly funding for over a decade. The conversation was particularly ironic, given that I'd just approved a $75 million expansion budget for their Florida operations the previous week. The thing is, Marcus continued, warming to his theme, building something like this requires vision that you can't teach. Either you have it or you don't. Elena's a nice girl, does her little bookkeeping work, but she doesn't have the entrepreneur gene. Some people are meant to work for others. Olivia observed. Nothing wrong with that. Exactly. Elena found her level. Small business tax preparation. She's probably happier not having to deal with the pressure of real business decisions. After brunch, Marcus gathered the entire family for what he called his State of the Empire presentation. This annual tradition involved detailed PowerPoint slides showing revenue growth, expansion plans, and market projections. What it actually showed was a comprehensive overview of how my investment strategies had built and sustained his business empire. 28% revenue growth this year, he announced proudly. Expansion into 4 new markets. Industry recognition as Real Estate Developer of the Year from National Business Magazine. The assembled family applauded enthusiastically. Marcus's success reflected well on all of them, validating their association with a real entrepreneur who'd built something from nothing. The key to sustainable growth, Marcus explained, clicking through slides I'd helped prepare through my consulting work, is understanding market timing, maintaining strong cash flow, and never accepting outside investment that dilutes your control. This last point was particularly amusing, given that outside investment controlled 65% of his company through various legal structures he didn't fully understand. Dad's always been amazing at seeing opportunities others miss, Jason added. Remember when everyone said expanding into commercial development was too risky? That's the difference between leaders and followers, Marcus replied. When you know you're right, you commit fully. No hedging, no safety nets, no asking for handouts. The presentation continued with projections for the next 7 years, including plans for expansion into 3 additional states and acquisition of 5 smaller real estate companies. These plans were based on feasibility studies my consulting firm had prepared and financial modeling that assumed continued partnership investment. Of course, none of this would be possible without the strong foundation we built in the early years, Marcus said. Those were tough times. Nearly went bankrupt in 2007. But instead of giving up or accepting help, I found a way to turn things around through pure determination. How did you manage that turnaround? Asked Olivia's boyfriend, who was attending his first family reunion. Marcus's expression became nostalgic. I found some investors who believed in my vision. Nothing personal, just business relationships with people who recognized potential when they saw it. But the important thing is I maintained control. Never gave up equity, never compromised my decision-making authority. That's smart, the boyfriend replied. A lot of entrepreneurs make the mistake of giving up too much control to investors. Exactly. The investors I worked with understood that their role was purely financial. They provided capital, I provided the vision and execution. Perfect partnership. I excused myself to get more coffee, while Marcus continued explaining his business philosophy to an audience that hung on every word. Walking through the beach house, I passed family photos showing Marcus's development projects, industry award ceremonies, and ribbon-cutting events at buildings I'd helped finance. The kitchen was filled with expensive appliances and custom cabinetry, all funded through partnership distributions. The wine collection in the adjacent room featured bottles worth more than most people's monthly salaries. The boat dock, visible through the window, displayed Marcus's latest yacht, purchased with what he believed were bonus payments from satisfied clients. Elena, there you are, came Marcus's voice behind me. We were just discussing the future of the company. I turned to find him with Jason and Tyler, all 3 looking serious in a way that suggested important family business was being discussed. The thing is, Marcus continued, we've reached a point where succession planning becomes critical. Jason and Tyler have proven themselves in the company, understand the industry, earned their positions through hard work. It's exciting to think about carrying on what Dad built, Jason said. The transition will happen gradually, Marcus explained. But the important thing is keeping ownership and control within the actual family. People who understand what this business really means to the Harrison name. Tyler nodded. It would be weird to have outsiders involved in something so personal. Right, Marcus agreed. This isn't just a business, It's a legacy. Alina, you understand why this needs to stay with blood relatives, don't you? I understand your perspective, I replied. I knew you would. You're practical about these things. You've got your bookkeeping work, your own life. You don't need the complications that come with major business ownership. Complications can be challenging. I agreed. Exactly. Better for everyone if the people who built something get to decide what happens to it. The afternoon continued with various family activities, swimming, beach volleyball, conversations about careers and relationships. I participated appropriately while listening to ongoing discussions about the business, expansion plans, and family legacy. During dinner, Marcus stood to make what he called an important announcement. I want to thank everyone for being here today. Family means everything to me, and seeing all of you together at the beach house reminds me why we work so hard to build something lasting. The table grew quiet as Marcus prepared for what was clearly going to be a significant announcement. After a lot of thought and discussion with my advisors, I've decided to begin formal succession planning for the real estate company. Jason and Tyler will be taking increased ownership stakes over the next 7 years, with full control transferring to them by the time I retire. Applause erupted around the table. Jason and Tyler looked genuinely emotional. Olivia beamed with pride, and various relatives offered congratulations. This is how business should work, Marcus continued. The people who understand the industry, who've earned their positions, who carry the family name, they're the ones who should control what we've built. What about the investors Dad mentioned earlier? Asked Olivia's boyfriend. Marcus waved dismissively. They're just financial partners. They provide capital, we provide everything else. When the time comes, we'll buy them out and keep everything in family hands where it belongs. How much would that buyout cost? Jason asked. Hard to say exactly. Maybe 70-80 million. But we're generating enough cash flow now that financing shouldn't be a problem. I continued eating key lime pie while listening to detailed plans for buying out investors who would never sell because the investors were me. And I was sitting at the table listening to plans for my own elimination from the business I'd built. The important thing, Marcus concluded, is that family money stays in real family. Not charity cases we took in, not outside investors looking for quick profits, not anyone who doesn't understand what the Harrison name really means. The table erupted in agreement. Various relatives praised Marcus's wisdom, his loyalty to family values, his commitment to keeping the business where it belongs. To family, Marcus declared, raising his champagne glass, and to keeping what we've built in the hands of people who deserve it. Everyone toasted except me. I was mentally calculating exactly how much Marcus's empire was worth without my investment, and wondering how long it would take him to understand that his charity case niece had been his silent partner for 17 years. Elena, you're being awfully quiet, Marcus observed. What do you think about all this succession planning? I think you should do whatever you believe is right for your family, I replied. I knew you'd understand. You've always been practical about knowing your place. The evening concluded with more family bonding, promises to gather again at Thanksgiving, and detailed discussions about the real estate company's bright future under Jason and Tyler's leadership. I helped clean up while listening to conversations about legacy, family values, and the importance of keeping business ownership in the right hands. Driving home, I reflected on 17 years of silent partnership with a man who publicly dismissed me as a charity case, while privately depending on my capital to fund his lifestyle. Marcus genuinely believed his success was self-made, his investors were passive financial partners, and his adopted niece was a bookkeeper who'd never understand real business. Monday morning, I called my attorney from my home office. Catherine, I need to discuss the Harrison Real Estate Partnership. The $280 million position? What are you thinking? Complete dissolution. I want out of every investment vehicle, every joint venture, every financial relationship. There was a long pause. Elena, that's essentially their entire capital base. Without your investment, they're looking at immediate liquidity crisis, probably bankruptcy within 8 months. I understand the implications. This isn't just about Marcus's company. 4,500 employees, dozens of subcontractors, multiple ongoing projects. The collateral damage will be extensive. I thought about Jason and Tyler's graduation parties I'd helped fund, Olivia's fashion school tuition that came from partnership distributions, Marcus's beach house that existed because of my capital injections. How long will the dissolution process take? Given the complexity of the legal structures, probably 6 to 8 weeks. But Elena, once this process starts, there's no undoing it. Are you certain this is what you want? I'm certain. I'll need documentation of cause for dissolution, contract breach, material changes in partnership structure, something that justifies immediate withdrawal. Marcus announced yesterday that he's planning to buy out all investors to keep the business in family hands. I'd say that constitutes a material change in our partnership agreement. That should be sufficient legal grounds. I'll begin drafting the dissolution documents. Monday morning brought a busy day of meetings with attorneys, accountants, and financial advisors. The legal mechanics of unwinding a $280 million partnership were complex, involving multiple shell companies, joint ventures, and investment vehicles that had been carefully structured to maintain my anonymity. Catherine's team worked with surgical precision to identify every aspect of my financial relationship with Marcus's empire. Real estate holdings, equipment financing, working capital loans, expansion funding. The web of financial interdependence was more extensive than even I had realized. The cascade effects will be immediate, Catherine explained during our afternoon meeting. Equipment lease payments will stop, development loans will be called, working capital will disappear. Marcus is going to wake up Friday morning facing complete financial collapse. What about employee protections? We can structure the dissolution to prioritize payroll and benefits, but ultimately Marcus will need to find replacement funding or begin liquidation proceedings. And the likelihood of him finding replacement funding? For $280 million? Given his debt ratios and cash flow requirements? Essentially zero. Tuesday brought news that Marcus had already begun reaching out to banks and investment firms about restructuring our investor relationships to optimize family control. His timing was impeccable. He was actively seeking to eliminate me from the partnership, just as I was eliminating myself. Wednesday afternoon, Catherine called with an update. All dissolution documents have been filed. Marcus's attorneys will receive notification tomorrow morning. Asset liquidation begins immediately. How long before he understands the scope of the situation? Based on the cash flow models, he'll start seeing problems by Saturday. Bank calls, supplier payment issues, payroll concerns. The full scope will probably take 10 days to sink in. Thursday morning, I was reviewing quarterly reports when my phone began buzzing with family group chat notifications. Marcus, temporary cash flow issue with the company. Working with our financial team to resolve quickly. Jason? Dad? Is this serious? The bank called about our development loan. Tyler, equipment company wants immediate payment on our lease agreements. Olivia, what's happening? Should I be worried? Marcus, just business complications. Nothing that can't be handled. The messages continued throughout the day, escalating from temporary issues to significant challenges to emergency family meeting called for Sunday. Friday brought more urgent communications. Marcus's confident morning message about minor setbacks was followed by increasingly frantic updates about bank meetings, attorney consultations, and unexpected investor complications. By Sunday morning, the family group chat had evolved into a full crisis communication channel. Marcus, family meeting, moved to my office. Beach house events canceled until further notice. Jason, Dad, the employees are asking questions about their jobs. Tyler, should we start looking for emergency funding? Olivia, can someone please explain what's actually happening? I arrived at Marcus's corporate headquarters to find the parking lot nearly empty and a small group of family members huddled in the conference room. Marcus looked like he'd aged 7 years in 10 days. Elena, thank God you're here, he said, looking genuinely relieved to see me. We need all the family support we can get right now. The conference room felt different than usual. Instead of Marcus's confident presentations about expansion and success, the atmosphere was tense with barely controlled panic. I'll be direct, Marcus began. Our primary investor partnership has been terminated, effective immediately. Without cause, without warning, without negotiation opportunity. How much money are we talking about? Jason asked. Approximately $280 million in various forms. Equipment financing, working capital, expansion funding, real estate holdings. The room fell silent as people processed the magnitude of the crisis. Can we replace that funding? Tyler asked. I've spent the week meeting with every major bank and investment firm in 4 states. The answer is no. Our debt-to-equity ratios are too high. Our expansion has been too aggressive. Our capital requirements are too extensive. What does that mean for the company? Olivia asked quietly. It means we're looking at bankruptcy. Complete liquidation. 4,500 jobs lost. Dozens of projects canceled. 17 years of building completely destroyed. The silence stretched longer this time. Marcus's empire, his legacy, his family's future, all of it crumbling because his anonymous silent partner had chosen to withdraw support. The thing I don't understand, Marcus continued, is why now? Our investor partnership has been stable for 17 years. Profitable, professional, no conflicts or complications. Then suddenly, complete termination with no explanation. Maybe they found better investment opportunities? Jason suggested. Maybe they needed liquidity for other projects? Tyler added. Marcus shook his head. I've been racking my brain trying to understand what changed. The only significant development was my announcement last weekend about succession planning and buying out our investors to keep the business in family hands. You think they didn't like that idea? Olivia asked. I can't imagine why. It was a business decision, nothing personal. We would have paid fair market value, negotiated reasonable terms, maintained all existing relationships. I listened to Marcus struggle to understand why his plan to eliminate his investors had resulted in his investors eliminating him. The irony was perfect, but explaining it would serve no useful purpose. The question now, Marcus continued, is what we do next. Bankruptcy proceedings will probably take 8 months. After that, I'll be starting over at age 61 with no assets, no company, no income. What about the beach house? Jason asked. Financed through company assets. It'll be part of the liquidation. The boats, the cars, the investments, all tied to company cash flow. Everything goes. The family spent the next hour discussing practical matters, job searches for Jason and Tyler, living arrangements once the beach house was sold, college funding for Olivia now that partnership distributions had disappeared. I keep thinking there must be something we can do, Marcus said. Some way to contact our investors directly, negotiate a compromise, explain that this affects thousands of people who depend on us. Do we know who they are? Tyler asked. That's the frustrating part. 17 years of partnership, and I never met them face to face. Everything went through lawyers and shell companies, professional, but completely anonymous. Why would they structure it that way? Olivia wondered. Privacy, I assume. Some investors prefer to stay behind the scenes, especially with family businesses. Less complicated that way. I could have explained the real reason for anonymity, that watching Marcus take credit for my business strategies while dismissing me as a charity case had provided 17 years of educational entertainment. But that conversation would come later, if at all. The hardest part, Marcus continued, is knowing that someone out there made a decision that destroyed everything we built and will never even know who they are or why they did it. Maybe it wasn't personal, Jason offered. Maybe it was just business. Maybe. But the timing feels deliberate. Right after I announced plans to buy them out and keep the business in family hands. Like they were sending a message. What kind of message? Olivia asked. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Maybe that family loyalty only goes one direction. Maybe that some people can't be bought out because they're not really investors. They're something else entirely. The meeting concluded with plans for Tuesday's bankruptcy filing, employee notifications, and media management. Marcus's real estate empire would officially end within 45 days, taking with it the beach house, the lifestyle, and the family legacy he'd spent 17 years building on borrowed capital. Driving home, I reflected on the strange justice of watching Marcus's plan to eliminate his charity case investor result in his charity case investor eliminating him. The symmetry was perfect, even if he'd never understand it. My phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. Liquidation proceeds from Harrison Real Estate Partnership will total approximately $240 million after legal fees. How would you like those funds distributed? I pulled over to reply. Establish scholarship fund for business students from foster care backgrounds. Use the Harrison Real Estate name, if possible. Understood. Anything else? Send anonymous notification to Marcus when the scholarship fund is announced. He might appreciate knowing his legacy will help people who understand what it means to be charity cases. 4 months later, the National Business Magazine featured a story about the Harrison Real Estate Scholarship Fund, established through an anonymous donation to support foster children pursuing business degrees. Marcus never learned that his former charity case niece had transformed his collapsed empire into opportunities for young people who, like her, had been told they didn't belong in real families, but might surprise everyone with what they could build when given the chance. Sometimes the most powerful legacy isn't the one you plan. It's the one that emerges when the people you underestimated decide to show you what real family values actually look like.